In the morning, the pilgrims of 4 exit the safety bubble and hear scratching at the door to the main room. The group line up with the melee fights in front and casters in back, then kick open the door. The corpses from the previous day are missing, and they are confronted with half a dozen intellect devourers. The small brain-like monsters rush in to attack, partially clogging the doorway as the pilgrims attempt to get out into the room and spread out. Perrin casts Ice Knife at one of the monsters and accidentally catches Elsa in the ice shard explosion after effect, and several of the party get scratched. Halfway through the fight, Perrin casts an acid arrow and almost hits Elsa in the back. Her monk instincts kick in and she spins with a hand stretched out, smacking the arrow out of the air to splatter against the wall, only taking a bit of splashing acid damage to her arm and back.
"I'll rip your liver out and shove it down your throat, you bastard!"
She screams through the pain. While distracted, she is hit by an intellect devourer and loses all control of her senses. She charges at Perrin and attacks him full force. Cater quickly shoots down the intellect devourers that had injured Elsa, and the pilgrims see him collapse but keep breathing. Dobby goes into a rage and bashes one of the monsters to death, screaming in his high-pitched voice. The others dispatch the remaining monsters and Robin tries to autopsy them. She grabs Cater by the hand and tries to get him to show her the different parts of the brain, but his injuries prevent him from recalling information. Out of the hallway arrives Bjorn, the blue-haired half-orc paladin, the 7th member of the Pilgrims of 4. Bjorn uses lay on hands to restore Elsa to normal and then catches up with the group.
Bob the goat and Rando the dog are in the partially eaten remains of a shed on a farm outside the city. I spoke to the farmers and paid them some money to cover the damage that Bob was doing to their property, and they agreed to keep them and the carriage safe until we return.
Jack and Perrin look at the wall and see some metallic draconic writing saying time for the big leagues. Jack takes this as a sign that half efforts are no longer acceptable, and he advises the group that he needs an hour to perform a ritual spell to summon a familiar that will fight for him. While waiting, Nyx offers a lick of his frog to Cator to help with the mental injuries from the fight. Cator licks the frog and begins seeing everything in strange colors. The walls are pink, his skin is green, and Nyx is all blue. Nyx laughs and says it will only last half an hour, then offers another lick. Cator hesitates much more this time, now knowing the consequences, but ultimately agrees since they still have to wait for the end of the ritual spell. As the spell completes, a black spider the size of a dinner plate with a red hourglass on its back slowly descends from the ceiling on a strand of web. One of the group attempts to take a swing at the spider, but it jumps out of the way and lands on the floor. Jack shouts for them to stop and introduces the group to his new familiar, a female named Thoraxia. Jack takes a few minutes to get used to seeing a wider vision arc through 8 eyes and to adjust to feeling movement vibrations through his feet. With his newfound sight, Jack points upwards to a hidden door, and the pilgrims decide to investigate. Nyx casts Spider Climb on Cator, and Cator walks sideways up the wall and attaches some rope and pitons above the illusory wall that is actually an open door. The pilgrims all make their way up, through a hallway and down a staircase. After a hall junction, the pilgrims find a doorway of partially transparent crystal that glows with magical energy. Jack casts Blade Ward on each of the pilgrims in preparation for a fight beyond the magical barrier. Robin sneaks inside and begins eavesdropping and searching the room. There are a group of orcs discussing a siege of the city, and the leader points to several markings on a map that is laid out on a table. As the orcs talk, Jack sends in Thoraxia and tells her to be careful and stay on the ceiling out of sight. Through her spider eyes, Jack sees the map and hears some of the orcish that Robin couldn't understand, and he quietly conveys the information to the other pilgrims in the hallway. Jack attempts to message the guard captain, but the message fails, which means that the captain is already dead.
The siege has already begun,
Whispers Jack. Meanwhile, the orc captain raises his hands and shouts that someone is in the room. 2 of the soldiers point at Robin and shout,
"Killer!"
With that, the rest of the pilgrims of 4 burst through the door and attack. Perrin casts erupting earth under the table, killing several of the soldiers and destroying the map. Nyx casts Moonbeam, and a column of searing silver light engulfs the orc captain, burning his skin. Kaitor gets surrounded, but uses the spider climb to walk up the wall above the weapon reach of the orcs and urogs, underdark orcs, and then he shoots the soldiers that were attacking him. After the fight, the group notices the door is glowing brightly and Bjorn is missing. Dobby runs in a circle and yells that Bjorn disappeared. Everyone except Robin and Kaitor goes through the glowing door and disappears. The pair quickly loot the soldier corpses and then hold hands and jump through the portal together. On the other side of the portal, the group appears inside a cage in a large feast hall. As more of them portal into the cage, they get pressed against the bars, eventually bursting open the cage entirely. The Pilgrims of Four see several prisoners in cages, including one with arseless chaps and another jumping in his cage as a guard flips a lever and sends electricity through the metal cage floor. However, Dobby is nowhere to be found. At the central feast table, there are several well-armored soldiers, rogues, and mages. Elsa tries to act casual and persuade them to make peace, but a warlock at the table mentions something about Azam under his breath, and then an imp appears nearby and shouts at Elsa,
"You're not evil, we kill you!"
Fighting breaks out, and the 7 Pilgrims of Four are outnumbered in the brawl. One of the enemy mages casts a fireball which knocks Jack, Perrin, and Thoraxia unconscious. Kaitor aims at the mage and then sees his friends burning. He grits his teeth, lowers his bow and rushes over to Jack, casting Cure Wounds and waking up the wizard. Jack gets up, his eyes wide. He turns around and looks at Perrin and Thoraxia. The fear of a parent that has lost its child fills him, and he desperately brings out a scroll and mutters an incantation. Holy magic radiates from the scroll, and Perrin gasps for breath and rises to his feet. Thoraxia jumps a foot in the air, lands, and raises 4 of her legs in front of herself. The scroll turns to ash and evaporates from Jack's hands. A young high elf sparking with magic runs up to Perrin and shouts,
"I surrender. I'm just a prisoner. I'm not with them."
Perrin raises his hands, and they glow with magical energy.
"Stay back. If you want to live, go to the corner and face the wall."
Electricity sparks around her, raising some of her hair, and her eyes water slightly, but she obeys. Nyx casts Lightning Bolt repeatedly, zapping several of the fighters and accidentally hitting some of the cages, killing 2 prisoners. Another of the enemy mages silences the area around Jack and Perrin, preventing them from casting most of their spells. In response, Perrin draws a short bow and shoots an arrow at the enemy cleric. The arrow pierces the bottom of her left breast and angles upward, piercing her heart and killing her instantly. Another lightning bolt flashes, and the leader, who had been sitting at a throne at one end of the feast table before joining the fight himself, falls down dead, his corpse sparking slightly. A fighter glances behind him, drops his weapons, raises his hands behind his head, drops to his knees and says,
"They don't pay me enough for this. I surrender."
Another enemy holsters his crossbow, waves his hands, and turns invisible. Bjorn takes hold of the fighter that surrendered and negotiates his release. Perrin approaches the high elf. She turns around and blubbers apologies and begs forgiveness and repeatedly calls him,
"My lord?"
Perrin is noticeably uncomfortable and hands off the questioning to Kaitor. Kaitor tries to comfort the high elf, whose name is Sibo. He learns that she has been a prisoner here for 2.5 weeks, and that they were holding Alec Azam in this room until only a few hours ago. Sibo explains that she has innate magical ability, but she can't control it. She tried to go to some wizards, but they rejected her. That was when she was ambushed, taken hostage, and brought to Mad Spike Chum Bucket. At the mention of that name, Jack steps away from grooming Thoraxia and asks,
Cater, do you still have that wand for the bounty collection? I think she's talking about the guy who was on the throne.
Wand? You've got all the wands. Oh, the bounty collection stick. Yes, I have that. Just give me a minute.
Replied Kaitor. Kaitor tries to get more information about Azam, asking what Chum Bucket wanted with him and what questions they were asking him. Sibo reveals that they were inquiring about a missing warlock and a missing high elf, which they implied Azam knew the locations of. Azam didn't give them any information, and it was a bit unclear if they were speaking about an ancient legend or modern people. Sibo apologizes for not knowing the entire story and says that she wasn't allowed to speak to Azam directly because they needed to control her magic. Sibo also explains that they are outside the city and gives directions for how to get out of the building. Kator draws a quick map, unsure if they will need to return to explore the rest of the rooms. Meanwhile, Robin unlocks the remaining cages but finds the prisoners catatonic and unresponsive. She leaves the cage doors open and proceeds to loot the corpses. When Sibo points out the eternal grimoire of Gaman, everyone takes notice and gathers the book. It is locked with platinum bindings and warm to the touch, clearly containing powerful magic. Jack sees the symbol on the front of the book and is shocked to recognize it as the symbol burning in the sky above four corners during the vision of the future, the symbol of a warlock cult known as the Children of the Old Light. He exclaims and tries to tell the group, but they stare at him in disbelief, not having seen the fiery hellscape future themselves. Kator gives Jack a knowing glance and quietly says,
It's okay, Jack. I remember. It'll be okay.
Robin and Perrin find a pendant of the moon shield, and Elsa remarks that it might be connected to the prophecy they had seen scrawled on the wall back before they found their bag of holding.
When the sun is eclipsed in the shield and the gate of mist is opened, the ring of madness shall be found,
She says from memory. Perrin packs the pendant away, not wanting to wear it openly and risk painting a target on their backs. Kator and Robin find a second bag of holding, and Kator asks if the group is okay with him holding this one. Everyone agrees, and he sits down at the banquet table with Jack's bag of holding, his own bag of holding, and all the non-sharp loot they salvaged from around the room and attached closets. He moved most of the miscellaneous clothing and items into the new bag and made sure all the coins were in Jack's bag, along with Jack's toolkits and 2 new medical kits. Once done, Kator began putting bundles of spare arrows and crossbow bolts into his backpack, each wrapped in cloth, and also stored all the various weapons they had looted. As he sorted through everything, the others pulled out chairs and sat with him, speaking up if they wanted anything. Kator gladly let them take whatever they wanted, including some magical boots for Nyx and health potions all around. When Perrin identified a magical hand crossbow, which would warn the group of incoming threats, Kator said that he could keep that with him and attune to it over the next day. Robin runs around unlocking doors, and Kator suddenly realizes that all the doors to the room were closed and locked during the fight, and he doesn't see any open windows.
The doors. They are closed. What about that guy who went invisible? He might still be in the room.
Nyx shouts,
Hey, invisible guy, come out with your hands up.
but there is no response. Elsa takes a swig of ale and says,
If he's still here, as long as he's behaving himself, he can stay. He's no threat to us now. If he assassinates someone, he knows he'll be killed, so he won't do it.
Nyx then looks around and screams,
Where's Dobby? Have you seen him? I don't think he made it through the portal. He wasn't there during the fight. We have to find him.
He grabs Kator's backpack and takes out a raven figurine, smashing it on the ground, activating the animal messenger.
Go find Dobby and tell him where we are and return with information about where he is.
Nyx instructs the bird. Perrin makes another extra-dimensional hut, and the group enter to rest, taking Sibo with them. Nyx stays behind and offers some blankets to the prisoners who haven't moved, despite having their cages stay wide open during all the conversation. One of them screams as Nyx approaches him and continues screaming as he backs away. Clutching his frog in one hand and using the other to cover an ear, Nyx tries to get the distressed man to lick the frog, but accidentally shoves it into his mouth as the man tries to inhale. He chokes, Nyx screams for help, and several of the group come out from the magical hut to assist, but they are unable to save the man. Nyx's frog worm, however, claws its way out of the throat and hops out, covered in saliva and blood. Jack pours a small health potion into the man's mouth, hoping to close the wounds in the throat, but the liquid does not absorb into the flesh like normal, and it is clear the man is dead.
I just wanted him to stop screaming. I was trying to help him.
Nyx blubbers, on the verge of tears. Once they are all inside the hut, Sibo says she overheard the bad men saying they were taking Azam to Dulathanorian for further interrogation.
The bad men want to know more about the ancient warlock and the Moon Shield Island.
The Pilgrims of Four and their companion Sibo awoke and left Chum Bucket's stronghold to find they were on the opposite side of the city as their carriage. Throughout the city streets, orcs rampaged everywhere, chasing and attacking women and children, leaving corpses of the husbands and fathers on the ground where they fell. Bjorn helps the survivors as best he can, going so far as to set a broken leg and carry an old man out of the city. Robin sees an orc almost upon a small child, and she sprints towards him, stabbing him in the back and taking his coin purse before he hits the ground, dead. The small child screams and draws the attention of more orcs, which Bjorn intimidates by calling,
"Come at me, or leave if you value your lives."
One orc does a double take, drops his weapon and runs away. The others flee after him. A woman approaches from the side of the street yelling,
"Alec, I told you not to get involved with adventurers again,"
and grabs him by the wrist and runs away with him. Kator chases after them and follows into a small house.
Hey, your son Alec, you said he's had past involvement with adventurers. We're looking for an Alec that had past involvement with adventurers.
Are you an idiot? He's 3 years old.
Cries the woman.
Well, wizards can disguise themselves, and Robin taught me children aren't always as defenseless as they act.
Says Kator.
He's literally just an innocent child. His midwife is just down the street if you don't believe me. Please, I need to get into the basement bunker.
Pleads the woman, and Kator leaves, closing the door behind him. The rest of the group were right behind him and heard the exchange, but were too focused on escaping the city to question it. However, when they returned to the main street, everything was abandoned. No more orcs, no more screams, not even people caring for their dead or wounded. When the pilgrims got to the farm on the other side of the city, Kator looked out over the water and saw a huge ship full of hundreds of orcs. It appeared to be fleeing the harbour as fast as it could, with the people on board running around in fear. He points it out to the others, and they say it looks like Bjorn saved the city. At the farm, the old man is shouting at the goat, trying to get it to stop eating his shed. Bjorn calms him by saying he was warned and that they will cover the costs. The farmer takes a look at them and first demands 1 million gold, but then sees their glares and says,
3 gold should cover the lumber.
Jack gives him more than that, and he runs off to his wife to celebrate. The pilgrims and Sibo have a brief discussion of where they need to go while they put the harness back on Bob the dire goat. Perrin says,
I think I'm going to be sick.
And pukes on the side of the road.
Dula Thenorian. That's where you said they were taking Azam, isn't it, Sibo?
Asks Kator.
Yes, but I don't know where it is.
Says the wild mage. The old man with the set broken leg that Bjorn had been carrying speaks up.
I know that city. It is deep within Adosi Forest. I've even got a map you can have. It is the least I can do since you saved my life.
He hands the map of the province to Kator and explains that the place to the west is dangerous because of a dragon, and there's a small port town nearby where the adventurers can restock for their journey. The old man goes to sleep in the partially eaten shed, and the pilgrims of 4 leave some extra food for him before departing. As they pass refugees, they direct them back to town, saying the danger has passed. Once they get to Rotidido, the port town, they see massive caravans of refugees and can see the word is already spreading that it is safe to return home. Kator asks one of the men with a longbow on his back if there are any expert rangers in the area, but the man can only direct him to Ed's Curious Forge, where Ed Venture sells weapons and armor and knows the area better. Once they talk to Ed, he directs them to Adosi Forest for veteran rangers.
There are some high elves and wood elves working together to burn the forest, to clear out the infection. The infected trees turn bright red and go on a rampage. At least the ones who can walk go on a rampage. The other ones just sit there, bright red and infecting the trees around them.
Ed also mentions that there was a wizard in blue robes and chained up that went through less than a day ago.
He kept saying, "Would any buxom maidens please come and rescue me?" as he was taken through town. After a quick stop at the Big Deal, they took him onto a big ship and headed out northwest. They said they were headed to Rotidido on the northern edge of the continent and promised the blue-robed wizard that he would have an endless supply of buxom maidens waiting for him there.
Ed told the pilgrims,
Between the dragon and all the giant squids and other sea monsters, I wouldn't risk the ocean if I were you. They only seem to ignore pirates, and I really don't know how they can tell the difference. The pirate ships normally get to Rotidido in 5 days. The safe river to the east takes 30 days. If you go through Adosi Forest and Dula Thenorian, you can probably get there in 20.
Do you have anything for sale?
asks Kator, and Ed brings him and Jack into the back room to show them his rock collection. Some of the rocks glow, and Kator wonders if they are magical, but Jack assures him they are just rocks.
Do you have any rocks?
Asks Ed.
I have some gemstones, about 700 gold worth.
Kator offers, revealing the bag of different colored gems. Ed's eyes light up, and he excitedly tries to grab at the gems.
I wasn't supposed to spend this, but
And he pulls out a bag of 70 platinum from a drawer below his rock collection.
I really want those rocks.
After the transaction, the pilgrims leave the store, but glance over their shoulders to see Ed strip off his shirt, lay on the table of rocks, and pour the gemstones onto himself.